So welcome everybody to the second hour of MindShifters Radio, and today is Monday, July the 31st, 2023. The month is gone after today. It's gone by so fast. Our calling number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us, and we would love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. We'll give Michael a moment to dial in and just to invite everybody to go to the website and look around at what's going on. And August starts tomorrow. We have the MindShifters and Still Point Breathing the third Saturday, Sunday of the month. If you want to participate in that, please get in touch with us. Let us know. We have the regular book club on the second and fourth Thursday, and the Course in Miracles book club on the third and the fifth Thursday. So lots going on, lots happening. And at this time, I'm going to welcome Michael.
Busy week coming up, yes. Welcome, everybody. Delighted that you're here, and looking forward to our conversation moving forward to the next level. And Miss Jeanie, is Julia with us? We were going to take our worksheet to the next level.
I have not seen her hand yet, but Susan's hand just went up, so I'm going to turn on her microphone.
Okay, well, let's say hello to Susan.
Hey, Susan.
Hey, hi.
Hey there, welcome, young lady. Tell us.
Thanks. Well, Jacob did his assignment. He listened to your 3-hour video, and he wrote me 6 pages of a summary and, questions, critique.
Wow.
He's a smart boy.
That's awesome.
And it is. And we haven't had a discussion, but following that 6 pages, he actually sent me a text. It's a little alarming because he was writing it from 3 to 5 a.m., and so I texted him back and said, look, I just got up, but I bet you haven't been to bed. And he says, yep, that's right, I haven't been to bed yet. I have to take my pill. And he takes a powerful sleeping pill, and all of that is, I have to do releasing of goals and so forth about how dependent he is. But so the summary is not only in paper form here, he sent it as a PDF file, but I haven't printed it out or gone through it. But he understood, as far as I can see, everything. His biggest question was, some people are true victims, and Michael's saying that people choose. And I haven't had the chance to talk to him about 2 things that you've taught. Yes, on some deep, profound, cosmic, generational level, we may well have chosen the life we have and the experiences we have. I remember wanting to clobber you because you told me I slipped on black ice and busted my wrist because part of me wanted that. And I have to fight with you in my mind because I know what you're saying, but there's no conscious decision for wanting that on any level. And you don't have to answer that because we have been through that. But
we're going to open that one again, are we?
No, we don't need to. But the other thing is that your point is that you can suffer all kinds of things that are not your fault, but it's your response that either brings you deeper into darkness or begins to pull you out of it and grow to a new level and gain new vitality and health. So I haven't had that talk with him. I'm looking forward to it. But I just wanted to report to you that the money spoke. The kid wanted the dough. In fact, he said at the end of it, I'm going to take Bella out to dinner and a movie.
Oh, that's nice.
He had some money. Yeah. So.
Well, my response to him, my response to him would be to say that there's no implication whatsoever that I'm saying on some conscious level any of us have ever stepped in and, said, I want this terrible thing to happen to me.
Right.
The idea is to get to recognize that we live in an energy system. We don't live as bodies. We are energetic beings. And that, if somebody's been through this terrible, painful reality 87 different times with 42 different people, obviously there has to be some participation. And when I recognize that and I'm willing to see the part of me that's hid, again, maybe generational, who knows, when I'm willing to at least entertain that, gee, I'm a creator and I've been here so many times, I'm the common link, maybe I'm involved, then I have the opportunity to capture the part of my mind that's hidden from me that is totally unconscious. You go back into the ancient scriptures and they talk about take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. Whatever the issue is, and what's the heart? It's the unconscious. So in some way, shape, or form, in an energy system, it's like you can't put two north poles of a magnet together without a lot of force. There's got to be a force applied in order to get these repelling poles to come into each other's proximity. And if I just turn the magnet around, bingo, it just snaps right in and attaches to the other magnet. So recognizing that we live in an energy world, then what energies am I willing to change in me that keep this thing snapping into my face? And, there's no implication that I sat at home one night and went into this dark space and said, oh boy, I'm going to set up this terrible suffering thing. It's just, So, creatorship. So it's a wonderful thing that everybody loves unless the creation isn't going so well, of course, and then don't we all know whose fault it is, and it's always them. Well, that's awesome that he looked and had that kind of comprehension and came up with that kind of question. It's a very valid question, definitely. And it'll probably create lots of space for conversation with you when you start to take my point in the argument and see if you can open the space for him to understand it, especially when you're totally sure that it's the other way around.
Right. And the thing that I've got to myself is that the text message he sent me was, you could say it was a long, long rant about the way the world is set up and how you can only be successful if you have a combination of nepotism and family money. Otherwise, you're screwed. He has a lot of beliefs about the fact that once he graduates from college, he may not want to live, or he may be homeless. Nobody's going to help him unless they do, but it's up to them. And if they don't, they're stingy. I mean, there are just so many things he is saying that I hope I have the brain cells to field. I can do it lovingly. Thank God the love is there. It's built in.
That's a big piece of the puzzle for sure.
Well, it is a big piece, but he's very, very bright in a way that's not being played to his best advantage right now. Intellectually very bright, emotionally a little clueless. I feel as if I'm brighter than he is emotionally, but I can't hold a candle. He talks about political figures and finances and the economy, and I mean, he loses me. I don't follow all that. I don't pay attention to that. And his father was the same. So I'm sort of half equipped for the job here. But anyway, and also with Charlie, who has terrible OCD, I've been working with him, handing him increments of the tools as he can handle them. I gave him the MindShifter. He hasn't as far as I know, done the MindShifter, but he keeps saying to me that he has a mental illness. They've done brain scans, and people with OCD actually have a different brain configuration. And I'm saying that is not cast in stone. You have thought disorder. You have erroneous thinking. Don't think of it as a mental illness. I got that from you and Dr. Tim. And it seems like the only chink in the armor, the only way through the healing is to convince him that he has some say in all this.
Or to inspire him to question what he believes, what he's been told. If you can just get him, you don't have to bring him all the way over to the side of the road, but at least question the side of the road he's on. Then with the kind of intelligence that both of them have, they'll come to different conclusions, would be my offering.
That's a good idea. Thanks. Well, I don't need to stay on. I know you're going to work with somebody, but I wanted to weigh in and give you a progress report.
Sweet. Well, if it feels like it's appropriate, I would love to see his summation. Who knows what I might learn from someone that smart? He may have some insights that I can go, I never thought of that one. That's, over the years, when I first started to teach this work, it was a simple 4-hour workshop. Why is this happening to me again? And most of what has developed and advanced and changed has come from people who said, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And I went, well, I never thought of that one. And started to look and went, you're right, that doesn't make sense, but here's what does. And so I'd be delighted to see it and also give you any feedback that I might have on what kind of questions he might respond to. And join, of course, in holding the space.
I already asked him if I could show it to you, and he said, I'd rather you not. He's a little hard.
Okay.
He's hard on everybody. But he doesn't, he's just harsh, a little harsh. He says a lot of good things, too.
Right. But that's okay. I've got thick skin. And if he brings up offense in me, I'll be responsible and do a worksheet.
I'm sure that's true, but I don't have his permission. So.
Yeah, and maybe, the fact that we've discussed it and you've said no, he's asked me not to share it, then perhaps just put forward that I'm interested in what I might learn from what he has to say. But I sincerely am. And would love to, or, if he'd be open to a conversation, I'd love to talk with him about it. I'd love to, share some thoughts.
He would. I would love if he would do that. I said to him, you ought to talk to Michael directly because he would love to engage in this discussion. And he said, oh no, I don't, but I'm going to work on it because he has some time before school starts.
Right.
And we are going to be together on a family reunion starting Friday morning through Sunday night, and I'll see him in person. Might be able to convince him to talk about some of them because he really needs to have some of these questions answered. Sorry, I've got the hiccups all of a sudden. He's up for discussion, but not on the radio yet. And maybe he will be. I'll work on it. I'll let you know.
Cool. And if he's open to discussion, I'd be glad to call him privately. He doesn't have to come on the show.
Well, that's awfully nice of you.
Sure. I'd be delighted to.
Thanks. Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad to hear. If nothing else, I've seen it take 10 years when somebody heard it first for them to come back and go, what did you say? What was that?
Yeah.
So, the seeds are planted. There's an old saying that says that a mind once stretched to a new shape can never return to its original form. And even if there's total, complete disagreement, the brain cells have
been
built. So
yes.
when it's time,
Mm-hmm.
it will open, and it always amazes me what each mind does, even the totally resistant mind does, when they hear this compilation of information. It always amazes me what the brilliance of the individual does with it.
That's true.
So,
by the way,
it's...
did you ever get in touch with Jeremy Griffiths?
No, I have not. Not yet, no.
Okay.
We've been rocking along here, but I'm definitely open to doing that.
Well, I think he needs you more than you need him. So I just think he would go right that last step that he doesn't seem to be going, at least in my opinion.
Right.
He's got something, but he doesn't have the tools to get us there, or probably even himself. So anyway, yeah. In good time, whatever time that is. I hope it happens.
In its proper order.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'll give up the goal.
Well, have you reached out to him?
No, I went on the website and looked for a link to or a word that said contact. And Jeanie said she had found one. I haven't gone back to look, but I was going to yell at him on your behalf and say, you need to meet Michael Ryce and hear his tools, because he's... Okay, well, if
Go for it. Well, Jeanie, if you've got a contact number for him, perhaps send it to, or contact, whether it's email, whatever it is.
I don't know how she found it.
Send it to both of us.
Yeah, I spent some time looking for it and didn't find it. But Jeanie, I heard her sort of say in the background, I found a way to get in touch. Yeah.
Cool.
That would be good.
Well, we'll see the right connections happening.
Yeah.
Well, any other thoughts for you, young lady?
Only that Dr. Tim did a blockbuster hour in the last hour, going over 6 or 7 wake-up sheets that he did, starting at 3 a.m. this morning. I have to say I'm completely without words, but he said, this is my birthday present. On my birthday, it's customary within some cultural thing, or my family or whoever it was that does that, to give a present to other people. And then he proceeded to go over some upset that he had and how he worked through it. And it is so recently done that it sounded as if he was still in the middle of it. And just a report. It was just amazing how he's using the tools and demonstrating them at the same time.
Well, joining and holding this space for he and every mind, heart, and being on the planet for that healing process to move forward.
Yeah.
It is just the most amazing thing.
I think the best thing that you both teach for me is that any upset indicates thought disorder or thought errors. It brings it back to us.
Data.
We had, yeah.
We've heard
that.
Right.
But now I'm hearing it.
Well, we've given, hostility and fear all kinds of meanings It means you're this way or they're that way or this or they're that. And underlying it all, the only true thing about hostility or fear is that it's an indicator that the mind that's in hostility or fear has a thought disorder going on with it. It has an energetic pattern that's corrupt. That's the underlying singular meaning of hostility and fear. And once the mind gets that, then it's an easy way to guide one's own mind back to, okay, what's my next piece of work here?
Right.
What am I in denial about that I'm hiding this from me?
Yeah, over and over and over again from whenever it started, which is probably a long time ago. Yeah.
Generations and generations and generations getting out of the desert. And as Yeshua said, the pathway's narrow. Few are those who will find it. And to me, that's the reason why whatever it takes to make it available globally, that's what we're going to do, because not many people are going to take the time to sit around and try to understand it. Life, one of the the most common drug we've talked about many times is busyness, and the world is structured to have everybody feeding on that drug virtually continuously.
Yeah.
I feel blessed that some measure of choice for me was involved, and a lot of circumstance, happenstance, and coincidence led me to end up going where I went with this work. So I'm, deeply appreciative of that, and it's been a passion to share it, put it out there. So any other thoughts for today?
No, thanks, Michael. Thanks for listening.
Are you a little bit on the melancholy side today?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I am.
What's happening? Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. A lot of processing.
Well, for me, it's enormously hopeful, even if there was money involved, that he took the time and gave you an intelligent review. And again, I think his question is right on track and one that deserves being answered. One of the something you might, if you jump on YouTube and put in
Are you still there, Michael?
I'm just trying to think of a title. There's a video that I watched just recently. Look for physics and entrainment.
Okay.
And they're doing experiments in physics, and there's several good videos on it, where they connect two molecules, or actually it's on an atomic level, two atoms. And in one experiment that goes back several years ago, they separated these two atoms by, I think it was like 7,000 miles.
Wow.
And they've got ways of measuring this all, and they do something with one of the atoms, and precisely to the instant, which, from a physics point of view, totally and completely defies all the laws of physics, because nothing can move faster than the speed of light. But the instant that this first molecule is impacted, the second molecule, 7,000 miles away, has the same exact response as the first one, because they're entrained.
Wow, that's so amazing. Yeah,
and there's a principle that might make sense with his brilliant mind that says, so if I'm an atom or made of atoms and I engage in something, Does it matter how far away or how close someone is to me in terms of whether or not they will respond? Whether or not there will be an action that comes out of that. That might be a way to get him to start to consider creatorship and the impact that we all have on the world around us, just without ever opening our mouths, without ever saying even a word.
Yeah. That's a great thought.
And that law of resonance, if I hold that I'm a victim, am I actually sending out an actual energetic signal that says, hey, world, I need somebody to victimize me? And if he can start to suspect that, then maybe he'll hear that, well, what if we try, and I'll join you in it because I've had my share of victim thoughts too. What if we try letting go of our victim thoughts and see if the world changes, see if the game changes? Might be a way to engage him. Entrainment in physics. Pretty powerful principle. Yeah. Cool. All right, young lady. Well, you have a blessed one, and know we cherish you. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. One thing leads to another.
That's cool.
I have saved out a link from a Dr. Huberman who, in this particular one, talked about, because Charlie worries about, he went to have blood work for various reasons, and his cortisol level is really quite high. And
it's fear.
It's fear, and he was showing me the graph on which it was. And then this Huberman guy is talking about a new kind of breathing technique that they've done research on with scientists, and they've come up with this breathing pattern that actually lowers cortisol.
Levels.
A fairly fast, deep breath in through the nose, then another breath above and beyond that, forcing more air in.
Right, going that extra forced breath,
Yeah. And then releasing it slowly, not terribly, just slower than the intake, slowly through the mouth. He said if you do this 3 or 4 times, your cortisol level will come down. And I want to tell Charlie about that so he gets the feeling he has some say in the level of his cortisol. But have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Next time he's ready to go do a blood test, take him through a still point session right before he goes and watch what happens. Put his hand in the abacin. Watch what happens.
I don't feel like a very good expert on still point breathing, as you know, and I don't have my abacin, but I could tell him about this, and I hope it will help. The abacin is a great idea, but it's more passive.
Yes.
He wants to be able to do something.
Right. Well, there is something he can do. He can forgive us to his fear. Cortisol levels going up to an abnormal range as a result of being in sympathetic dominance. If he can shift out of sympathetic dominance and activate the parasympathetic nervous system, his cortisol levels are going to drop permanently if he'll do the work to take himself permanently to that condition. The Avacin's actually got a new device out called a CSS. It measures stress and heart. The condition of arteries in the heart is actually a diagnostic device for heart problems, and whether one's in sympathetic or parasympathetic dominance. And what they're finding is people in sympathetic dominance, they'll do this evaluation on this CSS device, and then they'll do a 30-minute Avacin treatment and go back and do the CSS again. And their sympathetic dominance scores drops anywhere from 10 to 25% right there on the spot.
Wow. They
shift into parasympathetic.
So So this CSS is a diagnostic thing, but using Avicen would do that even without
Is
the
the
CSS
treatment.
telling you that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's a device they just came out with about, maybe 8 or 10 months ago, and they've been doing shows with it. You know, they've been doing conference-type things, and like medical and healing conferences. And so they have a booth, and they have somebody, you know, people will come in and do the CSS, and then do the apps, and then do the CSS again. They'll just do it like click, click, click in succession. And they're saying anywhere from 15 to 25-point drop just right there on the spot.
Yeah. Are they selling these so people can do it at home?
They do, yes. Unfortunately, it's not inexpensive. It involves a computer and a program and a sensor and, you know, a printer, and so it's a pretty expensive package. I had, you know, thought of getting one, but it's not really in a range that is sane for us with, you know, with what we do.
Yeah.
But it's they're consistently, you know, they have a meeting once a week, and so they'll say, well, this weekend we were at it, and I went through with poop, 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 poop. So many people just made that shift right on the spot.
Well, that's cool. Well, that's good news. I could tell Charlie about it. He'd be heartened just to hear that we have some say in how we handle our stress. Not only with the forgiveness tools, but the gizmo and the breathing. Yeah.
That is measurable. I mean, it's literally measurable right on the spot.
Oh. Okay, Michael, I think I'm done. Thank you so much, and thank Jeanie, too.
All right, we appreciate you. Blessings.
Thanks. You too.
All right. Well, Miss Jeanie, do we have anybody else in the phone with a hand up?
Yes. Julia is with us, so let's continue our worksheet on Friday.
Yay. Let's go for it. Hey there, young lady. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I have a bad headache. I stopped drinking coffee on Saturday, so...
the detox can be intense.
After our call, I went and looked in my cupboard, and I had that Dandy blend, and so I'm like, okay, so let's just drink this. And
you had Dandy blend in your cupboard?
Yeah, I did.
That's pretty amazing. Well, here's my thought. You know, you don't need to torture yourself to heal. And if you're, you know, I mean, what you're telling me is you've got a coffee addiction and you went cold turkey, and maybe you don't need to go cold turkey. Maybe you just let yourself, you know, wean off of it rather than traumatizing yourself while you're doing it.
Well, I really
That'd be my
wasn't
thought.
enjoying, and thank you, but I wasn't enjoying coffee. It was not making me feel well. So, and now that I'm like 2 days into it, I don't want to.
You're just going to go for it.
I would prefer to just get it over with. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you happen, if you had Dandy blend in your cupboard, you may have some white willow bark. Do you happen to have any white willow bark?
I don't think I have willow bark.
No.
But
is there a health food store near you?
Yeah.
Or actually, I think many drugstores are carrying white willow bark now, and basically it's acetylsalicylic acid, aspirin, except in its natural form, with complementary nutrients with it, so it's not as toxic as, say, aspirin is. So you might just nurture yourself a little bit as you wean off of the coffee and give yourself a little bit of relief. So that's another alternative thought.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
So how has your weekend gone then? We went through step 1 in the worksheet on Friday, and tell me a little bit about what your process has been since we completed the call on Friday.
Well, I'm pretty consumed by the headache and not feeling well on Friday. And I felt a bit better yesterday. I had a lot more energy. So I got some housework done, but pretty, not any big emotion coming up for me.
Right.
But I did kind of have a realization. I had an interesting dream on Saturday, because it was like Friday night. And it was, recently I had taken my father to the hospital to have a procedure. And but in my dream, I was at a hospital, and it was for me being there for some reason, and that wasn't obvious in my dream. And I going to my room before, anything, I was walking the room, and I passed the pool, and there was like a squirrel drinking water. It seemed to be a squirrel drinking water from the pool, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I went to the room, and then I thought, oh, I have to check in first. So I was going back to check in to the hospital and register. And then I was walking by the pool again, and I noticed a squirrel again to like a kitten. And then the kitten was in the center of the pool, and it started sinking. And so I jumped into the pool, and and the kitten had sunk to the bottom of the pool. And so I grabbed the kitten and went up, to the top, and I was like squeezing its belly, like pumping its belly to get the water out of its lungs, and the kitten recovered. So that was an interesting dream.
Well, oftentimes in dreams, water is meant to be a reflection of spirit. And if you're going into a hospital and that is the pathway in, there's a pool there both coming and going, it would make sense that your unconscious is telling you that you're moving into, and if the kitten, the part of you that would be represented by that kitten being immersed in spirit, that there's recovery, there's healing, and it sounds like you're getting a signal that connecting more with your spiritual nature is perhaps where your healing is.
Yes. I dream of kittens off when I'm immersed in spirituality. It's not the first time. And then when I was pregnant with my daughter, I dreamed that I gave birth to a kitten. And but she was born in the Chinese year of the tiger, and in the month of Leo. So she's a Mayan tiger.
Triple feline input, eh?
Yeah.
Cool.
But she's a sweetie. And I had this interesting. We can get to the worksheet.
Okay. Did you listen to any of the radio shows that specifically went through the worksheet? Did you do any work on the worksheets over the weekend? So then let's see if there are any questions in particular then from...
I did listen to 2 different calls, and I did like this morning. I got up and I printed out lots of different worksheets, and I did a one that was like a quick worksheet, right? And it's called the
short form.
The short form. And when I printed it, I was like, wow, this is a short form. It's like got so much writing on it. But then when I went to do it, I was like, oh, it's 5. 5 of them on one page. So I went through and did that, and all 5 times I went through the 5, and so that was good. And
how did that impact you?
I didn't really have much of an impact, and it was pleasant, and but not a lot of emotion came up. And
did any questions develop out of those worksheets that you did, or specific questions, or the 2 shows that you listened to?
Oh, yeah, let me see. Well, this seems like a silly question, but how do I differentiate between thoughts and feelings?
That's not a silly question at all. In fact, we live in a culture that most people substitute thoughts for feelings. Well, I feel like you shouldn't do that anymore. A lot of people say things like that, and that's been modeled throughout the whole culture. And what people are doing is expressing a thought and pretending it's a feeling, and that's a way to avoid feelings. So I think it's a really good question.
Yeah.
And for me, the way you
I wrote down.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, that was just the one question that I had written down.
Oh, okay. Okay. So for me, the distinguishing point would be, 1, am I feeling this in my structure? Am I feeling this physiologically somewhere? When I'm in an emotion, I'm going to tend to feel it as a sensation somewhere in my body. And there's actually a chart on our website called the Feeling Wheel that looks at feelings and the categories that they tend to be in. It might be worth downloading that Feeling Wheel.
Yeah, I printed that out.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And I bought a binder, and I bought a clipboard. And
you're rocking. You're on it.
Got a notepad. Yeah.
Good. So then, if I want to start to distinguish between my mind, or develop the brain cells for when I'm thinking but avoiding my thoughts, avoiding being responsible for my thoughts. So when I say I feel like you shouldn't, if I can express whatever it is, and use the example, I feel like you shouldn't do that. Then if I change the wording of that, does it change what's happening in my physiology? And so am I really thinking a thought here and pretending it's a feeling, or am I actually feeling an energy in my structure? So emotions, and we tend to use the word more emotions than feelings in this work. We try to move in the direction of recognizing emotions. Is if I'm having a thought and I change that thought, then the sensation in my body is going to change. So if I'm having a thought, or feeling, or what I say is a feeling, but it's really a thought, I feel like you really shouldn't do that. If I change that in some way, shape, or form, like, oh, it's okay if you go ahead and do that, what happens in my physiology? And am I really just avoiding my emotions by staying in my head? It's a way of staying in one's head and avoiding experiencing what's going on in the emotions. Jean, do you have a thought in this regard?
No. Not really.
Okay. Does that fit? Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, if I remember correctly, we completed on Friday down to the punishment area. We completed through step 1E, and then we did the verbal release, right?
I think that we were just in the process of the emotional release. I think I interrupted, and you're like, I asked a question, you're like, no, you're going too fast. We come back to the emotional release.
Right.
And
so then
it was
the emotional
I think
release.
around E. Oh, yeah. Because I talked about I want to punish by overeating and engaging in addiction. And then 2, I'm willing to process all dis-ease as I go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing. And I would put a check next to that box, right, as like an affirmation that I agree.
Okay.
And then I think like we would should start at 3A.
Okay. We talked about what the symptoms of healing look like physically, mentally, and emotionally. So on a physical level, it looks like any kind of physical symptom you've ever had and low energy. On a mental level, it looks like any kind of negative thought and confusion. On an emotional level, it looks like any kind of negative feeling and depression. So what I'm saying to myself is I'm giving myself permission to experience those things, and I stand in willingness to embrace them when they start to break loose, which they will. So that makes sense? Got that step?
What step is that we're talking about? I feel like my brain is trying to block me from understanding this.
Mm-hmm. And that's a normal step. When I'm stepping out of old patterns, my mind's going to want to pull me back. And remember, one of the symptoms of healing is confusion. Is that noise happening on your end, or is there somebody online, Jeanie, that's got their? We need to mute.
Not me. No.
Jeanie, do you have any idea where that noise is coming from?
I don't have anybody else on.
Oh, that's strange. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just sitting in my bedroom. But it sounds like someone was like moving pots and pans or something in their kitchen.
Yes, yeah, that's what it sounds like. Yeah.
So 3A says, my desire, the constructive result, the exact goal that drives and uncovers my pain is that I want to, 1C,
whoever my trigger is, whoever I named in 1C.
Yeah, and 1C, I'm focused on my body and on my pain and being in physical pain. And I'd like to not be in pain. I'd like to heal so I can be normal, not limp, not be in pain.
Right. Okay. So you'll notice the language here is the constructive result that I want. And the forgiveness process, a la first century Aramaic, will only work with when I look at what it is that I really want. Like, for instance, when I say I don't want to be in pain, in terms of energy, when I say I don't want to be in pain, what I'm energizing is pain. And I want to start to be able to flip into what is it I really want to move toward rather than what I want to move away from. So that would tend to be something more like, and I want to feel wellness and joy in my body would be the goal. And the reason why we're identifying in the core of this whole forgiveness process is that perception, whatever is recruited by the mind from the multi-generational database we call the body-mind unit, that forms my mental structure, my perception at this moment, is driven by my goals. There's some Harvard research, goes back into the 50s. It's probably the most quoted research in psychological history. And basically what they showed was they're measuring firings of brain cells, electrical firings of brain cells. And, they've got somebody hooked up to electrodes, and they're able to measure in a time period of about a 25th of a second, there are 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity happening in the brain, 10,000 brain cells firing. And in that same time frame, what they established was that the max amount of data that went into conscious awareness was 9 bits. So there's a massive amount of data moving, and I only get to see a small part of it. Now, obviously, if that's accurate, something has to determine which 9 bits of data my mind uses in any given situation. And what we're offering is that what drives that whole process, what determines which 9 bits out of 10,000 my mind's going to use to build my reality, to build my perceptual constructs, the thing that determines that is my goals. That's the driver for the process. And that's why at this stage in the worksheet, we're establishing what the goal is. And again, the goal, you want to make sure that it's the constructive result. The person who says, I don't ever want anybody to ever pick on me again. Energetically, when you realize that we're continuously, as energetic beings, sending out energetic messages, if I say I don't want anybody to pick on me, what energetic message am I sending out? The body of the message is about being picked on. If I say to you, don't think about the color of your car, what fires in brain cells? Something about the color of your car. So the body of the thought, and so I want to make sure that the body of the thought that I identify in number 3 is a constructive result that I want, not what I'm trying to get away from. So when I say I don't want to be in pain, then I'm going to tend to reinforce the vibration, the energy, the frequency of pain. When I move into the arena of, geez, I just want to be comfortable in my body, now I've got the goal that is going to become the driver for my mind to formulate whatever my reality is going to be. So in context of if you look at the whole body of number 1, the core of it, the object of attention, is your body and being in pain. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So then in number 3, you'd want to look at, so what's the constructive result that you want to produce in that situation?
I want to feel wellness and joy in my body.
Okay, cool. So that's what you want to fill in on number 3.
Okay.
So now you've established what the goal is that's driving your perception. And what that means is that in the file, so to speak, in your mind on well-being, there's some energy to be processed out that produces pain. And you want to be able to embrace that energy that's producing pain and move it out of your structure, literally have that energy be released or removed. And the master removal tool is active present love. If somebody's in pain and they try to resolve pain, they'll tend to create more pain. If somebody's connected to love and they're in pain, and they can access the hidden part of them that's producing the pain, then by exposure to active present love, the pain's going to begin to dissolve. It's kind of like our human essence, which is love, is kind of like a sandblaster for pain. It literally just starts to disassemble it. The trick is, can I hold to active present love while pain is moving in me? And if I can, then I'm going to begin the dissolution of that pain. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So then step 4, what I want to do is really connect with active present love in me. And I'm not talking about, the culture's definition of love, self-sacrifice or sexual athletics or all the crazy definitions that the world has for love, recognizing that my eternal essence is active present love. I want to bring love forward into awareness. So I choose love, my essence, which stirs the love in everyone involved. And you see in brackets at the end of that, the rose and the butterfly story. And that's a story I tell in the workshop, where imagine that we have a rose and a butterfly. We give them each an ego. They meet, they quote-unquote fall in love. And one day, the butterfly up and flies away. The rose, knowing that the love of the butterfly is the most important thing in its life, uproots itself to give chase. What's going to happen to the rose?
It's going to die.
It's going to die. Why does it die? It made something more important than being connected to its source. The offering here is that if I make anything more important than staying connected to my human life, than staying connected to love, then I give up my human life to do that. The person in rage and fear and sadness and grief and hatred and vengeance usually has difficulty accessing the presence of love in them. And so this step is about bringing us into conscious contact with love. And so what would be, you mentioned kittens. That might be it. Jeanie actually, she does one-on-one worksheet work with people privately. And she had a woman back a few years ago that just had no concept of love. Nothing she could think of brought love to her. And she finally, in her session with Jeanie, mentioned her cat. And so Jeanie said, well, just think about your cat then. And that didn't do it for her. This woman had to go physically look around the house and find her cat, brought the cat, sat the cat in her lap, and was petting it, and was able to connect with love. And I don't remember, Jeanie, how many times did she go and get her cat in order to get to that state before she could just do it without physically accessing her cat?
Yeah, it was quite a bit.
So that was the trigger that brought her into a connected space with love. So right now, what image could you go to that would bring you back to a connected space of love? What brings the deepest, clearest connectedness into awareness for you?
My family.
Okay. So is there one person in your family that...
I
know for me, all. Right? Well, for me, the thing that takes me back most quickly is when my daughter was born. She was born at home. I got to catch her as she was being born. And she opened her eyes, crystal clear and looked into my eyes and grinned. And that sent me into a connected space of love. And we're down to the completion point of the show. It's going to cut us off, but we'll carry on talking until it actually cuts us off. And if it works for you, continue tomorrow. So that's the image that I use to reconnect to that active presence of love. What takes you most deeply into that connected space? And that's what I suggest you do at this stage in each worksheet that you do.
Okay.
So maybe that's something you could cultivate, your connectedness with love between now and tomorrow, and let's carry on the conversation first thing on the show tomorrow.
Okay.
Does that work?
It might have to be Wednesday. I have to work tomorrow, but I'll see how it goes at work. And,
okay,
yeah.
Cool. If it doesn't work, well, if it does work, you're going to be there with your hand up, and if it doesn't, then we'll do it on Wednesday. An extended worksheet.
Thank you.
All right, dear heart. Blessings.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And we're pre-recording on Wednesday, so it would have to be Thursday.
Oh, that's right. We've got something happening Wednesday. So if tomorrow doesn't work, let's make it Thursday, okay?